All right, we're live. Let me just verify that. No intro today for this special edition of Indie Book Launch. Where are we at? Yes, we're live. Good. I love it. I have accumulated on this Friday the 13th a panel of wonderful friends and author acquaintances of mine here. We have Russell, Tyler, and Brian who are going to join me in a conversation about releasing sequels. So, obviously this YouTube channel primarily focuses on promotion of new books that are coming out. As it happens, myself included, everybody here is has either recently or is going to be soon releasing a sequel in a series. And it came up that there was an opportunity here to discuss what that's like and how strategies are different, what we've done maybe well or struggled with. And I thought it would be fun to have a different kind of conversation, a little more of a panel type discussion where we can talk together and maybe get some ideas out there for other folks that are looking to launch a sequel in a series. Um, we have a whole bunch of folks that are out there today. So, no new book officially, although, again, Russell, myself, Brian is getting ready to. Tyler will be joining me in a couple weeks here, maybe. I think it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, 13 days.
And yeah, we went on to have a conversation around what it's like to release these sequels because it's definitely a different animal than those first books. So, give everybody a chance. I'm going to go around the horn here, give a chance to introduce. So, Russell, if you want to just give a brief introduction of yourself so people know who you are.
Sure thing. Hey, everybody, I'm Russell, also known as the Dog Walking Author, author of 2 epic fantasy books, Relentless Blades and Ashbound Oaths. Awesome to be here.
All right, Tyler.
Hey guys, Tyler, author of Children of Strife, The Arsonist, and The Vitamin Kid, 2 completely different fantasy or fiction stories, rather. And have a new book coming out in 13 days that's a sequel to The Arsonist.
Brian.
I'm Brian Holzhauser. Honored to be here with these lovely authors. These are their debut books. My book is Gwen's Kingdom, The Electric Moon, and I also have another standalone, which is Nakiri's Last Stand. I've been writing for roughly 15, 16 years on books, just published last year. But anyway, check it out. It's a YA fantasy series. So.
Awesome. And then, of course, I'm the esteemed host here, Jessica Barbary. I have many books out at this point, but I'll say I just released the sequel, Bonds of Scale, to my Sons of the Flame series, and that was earlier this week or last week. I don't even remember, but I just was on here. So, with that, I want to kick us off. So, every one of us has had the opportunity to go ahead and release our primary books. And I think for the most part, it seems like to some degree of success, or noise or, it's definitely different when you have when you're writing a series, the first book of the series, that's your jumping off point. So that's the thing that you're presenting to the public. When you know you're going to be writing a sequel or a series, the marketing or the approach that we take with our sequels sometimes looks a little bit different. So I'm interested to know. So Russell, like I said, Russell and me have already released. I know that Russell, it seemed like you had some pretty decent feedback or success when you released yours. I'm curious to know what was your strategy? How is your strategy different for releasing Ashbound Oaths versus your Relentless Blades?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I definitely learned that it's much more difficult in a sense to release a second book that's part of a series as opposed to a second book that maybe is standalone or different, which is, I know we're going to get into that topic with this group, I hope, later. But because it's you have to then, you're marketing to folks or releasing to folks who you have to assume have read the first book. So I'm still learning as we go. So my strategy was to try to pump up the first book, Relentless Blades. I put that on sale right before Ashbound Oaths came out, hoping to drive people to read the first book so that they can then jump into the second book. And I'm still trying to figure my way, quite frankly. And even half the time now, when I think about marketing or promoting the books, I'm like, get confused. Like, should I keep pushing Relentless Blades more because that's the entry point, even though Ashbound Oaths is the newer book. And so I want people to read that, but you really can't read that without reading the first book. So it's an ongoing process for me. But that was my strategy. Try to pump up the first book to get people interested to go to the next.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And that's definitely what I noticed as far as, putting on that promotion ahead of time to try and build up the hype. I know. So Tyler, you had your book out and then you did a cover, like a new cover or a new updated version of it.
Yeah, I did. Well, so I had released the book in spring of 2023, and then I did a re-release for two reasons. One, I wanted to do the book the way I wanted to do it originally, but I didn't have the ability to at the time. So it was sort of like it was kind of just like a re-release. There's things that are in it that are different than the first edition, if you want to call it that. And then the second thing was also that I wanted to kind of shift the focus back to that story that I was trying to focus on, that series or world, because I had put out the Vitamin Kid afterwards in summer 2024, which completely different. And so I wanted, and that was kind of what people started to know me as, at least on social media. I was actually still selling like the Arsonist pretty regularly locally in my state, in like Eastern Washington. But then online though, it's like, oh, you're the Vitamin Kid guy, So I was kind of trying to reshift the focus because I was working on the sequel and I needed people. I didn't want people to be like, oh, this is the first book, and then they buy it without saying anything or asking, and then they're reading and they're like, this is kind of like I feel like there's something that happened, before. So I was trying to get people to go back and reread The Arsonist, and doing like a whole new version of it was kind of incentive for people that even bought it originally when it came out. I felt like to kind of like, oh, I'm going to get this version because it's different, it has like a map in it and stuff. So yeah.
Excellent. So that makes sense. So you released it a while ago. You had a book in between that's kind of standing alone on its own. And then you're trying to get people reacclimated, build up that audience, get yourself associated to that particular brand, and then prepare for the launch of this one.
Yeah. And I want to preface this to everybody that I wouldn't recommend, if you're in the middle of a trilogy or a series, putting it on pause to write a different project. There's a lot of people that are always doing this. I did it, but I don't support, I don't advocate that people do that. I wouldn't suggest it. You can if you want, but I wouldn't recommend it. The reason why I did it, people that maybe know this, I think you guys already know this, but it was more of like a pact that I made with my younger self. Like, I needed to do this because I did this kind of thing. So had I not had that, I would have just continued on with the Children of Strife books. But I'm happy. I'm happy that it happened this way, because I think people really like the new cover and everything of the Arsonist. So.
All right, and then Brian, you're ever the pusher of Gwen's Kingdom, and I know that you're out there. Is there an intentional strategy though, that that the second one is coming out, that you're working to build some hype?
I mean, I'm kind of like Russell. I feel like I'm doing this as I go, and I just learn every day. Something new comes, and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, and it's trial by fire. So there's a lot of that. Um, I will say I kind of have the same guilty. What would you call it? Author's shiny object syndrome or whatever, where I went from writing this series, Gwen's Kingdom, and I kept doing these signings, and I kept hearing parents would come to me and say, "Hey, my kid just can't focus on a full scale novel. I need something fast paced, something quick, something that can knock out in an hour or two." And so I started going, okay, there's a story later on in this I could break out and put it in a novella, and that's what I did. So this is in the same universe, several books later, and I've expanded it way more than it ever was. And so, like Tyler said, though, it's weird now having two somewhat standalone books that I'm kind of working on. But I don't know. In the end, it might work out even better because I know algorithms kind of favor you putting more books out like faster. And so if I'm able to somehow write fast enough, which I don't seem to do, I could probably time it to where the algorithms boost me a little more, maybe get me a little more sales or something. But as far as like getting out and promoting it, I feel like it's all been a huge chunk of it's been me, and then some people and friends like Russell and Tyler and the Fosha just spitting it out online, kind of giving it a little extra visibility on that end. But as a YA author, my target audience is so hard to reach. They're teenagers. So I have to convince parents more than anything that my book is, it's okay for them to read. It's safe. It's not full of weirdness. It's, not full of spice or anything that triggers, parents to say, no, we're not doing that. And so I have a weird wall that doesn't seem to exist outside of YA with my books to hit my target audience. So I'm definitely learning, and I'm pushing new strategies all the time. I'm asking, my nieces and nephews, like, hey, what do you guys like? How do you guys hear about books? What do you guys like? What's your main source? Stuff like that, where I go out there and just try to fill it out and try and find new ways to get my book exposed. Because I'll be honest, as a YA author in the indie world with one book or one in each series, it's difficult. It's hard to get that recognition and get your book pushed out there. So
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I noticed I had a hard time with, especially with this book, is when I released book one, so Legacy, I was able to fairly easily find some beta readers to do beta reads. I had arcs that I could send out, and I didn't have any trouble finding that. But I basically had nobody to look at the second book. I had the beta readers that I had originally. Um, some of them weren't available. Some of them we had a falling out. So it's like, I don't have the same horde of people. And it's like, okay, well, if I want you to beta read this one, like now you got to read the second one. And if I want to hand out art copies, it's like, well, I'll be honest, like not a lot of people have read the first one. So who am I, like, how do I source this or pool this? It's definitely a different animal than the standalone or the first book. Anybody else have an experience like that, or some like a way to overcome that challenge, or maybe that's just the reality of it?
I know
is this
for me,
Pico? Is that Pico?
This is Pico, yes.
Oh,
this
that's
one's
awesome.
Pico.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this one's Pico, the little guy, not Kira, the big one. I was just gonna say, as far as art goes, I know I struggled to get ARC and beta readers for the first book, but once I had those for the second book, I just went back to the well of people that had read the first book, who actually left a review, who seemed engaged, who really seemed to like it. And so I got a much smaller group than I sent out to when Relentless Blades came out. But I got a better turnout, I think, people that were engaged, who had read the first book, were interested. So for me, that worked really well. I didn't even go back out to like the general public and try to solicit people. I just used folks who had been invested in the first book.
That's smart.
I had a very different, probably unique experience when I was writing The Arsonist, my first book. I had a lot of people that were willing to read, but they were kind of forced to. It was a workshop thing, like a college workshop thing. So I had a lot of people to give me feedback, but I can't. It was one of those things where it was kind of, it wasn't like a volunteered thing. So I didn't have that with this book. With this book, I leaned heavily on the Fosha community, and also like in the Discord and stuff, asking for people to volunteer, and then also, but that was for beta readers. I did do like an alpha read this time, which I never had done with even the Vitamin Kid, which is I had about 6 people that had read The Arsonist read like a very early raw version of The Confluence, which is the name of the next book, and kind of go from there to beta readers, where beta readers are just kind of like a random. There were a lot of people that beta read that had never even read The Arsonist before, and I was like, it's okay. Like, I just kind of want to like just make sure, like, is this coherent to you? Like, does it ramble? Is it info dumping? All these things and stuff. But I think it is difficult. I think that was always kind of one of the tricky parts. I feel like, though, with any author that you meet in the indie space is like finding readers that you can rely on and trust. It's really hard because typically those people are your friends and family, and not everybody has really honest friends and family. Some of them are just like, oh yeah, I read it, it was really good. You're like, okay, but like there was nothing wrong with it at all, you're sure? Like, and then you end up putting it out there, and then there's like tense issues, and
yeah, it's a good point. So I guess it's my turn. I would say on mine, I have some challenges like that, but not as much as you guys, because I have a certain base of readers that I consistently go to as well. The first time I actually pulled in some betas and arcs from like libraries around here, but I have people I just know that read, and they were very willing to do that. So I got really lucky on that side of things. But at the same time, like Tyler said, some people you just have to really push them. Like, hey, I want to know like where the bad stuff really is. Like what dropped your interest. And the more I push, the more I get back, kind of thing, especially with family, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. They don't want to be dishonest. Although I will say I have a couple that are very honest. So, I mean, brutally honest, which is good. But at the same time, you don't want to just rely on them just saying, oh, it's good. That's the end of it, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. And so I think a lot of that you learn as you go, who you can trust, and also how to approach it with people. Because if you just say, hey, just read this, and you don't say, I really, really want honesty, just tell me where it was really good, tell me where it wasn't really good. You learn, like, you have to do that to get that honest feedback, and then fix your errors, or fix where maybe the pacing dipped, or maybe there was something that just was not clear. And I, like in Gwen's Kingdom, I had a couple of really, really cool fight scenes. Like there's a fight scene in the caves in chapter 10 or 9, where 9, where it just was not that good, and they were like, okay, go back and look at this differently. And they kind of told me, hey, you can make this a lot better, and now it's like one of my favorite scenes in the book. So
Right.
You can definitely get a lot.
I like that scene.
What's that? The cloak's coming off. I don't blame you. These are hot. Cloaks are hot.
It's meant for outside.
They're the hottest thing in fashion. They're making a comeback.
Hey, at the risk of I don't want to derail it totally into whole beta readers and whatever, but do you all, the three of you, find that I found this is an issue I had with them, struggling in some ways with focusing them on structural, big picture issues, character development, pacing, flow. Like I find I get a lot of feedback of things like, oh, you missed a period here. Oh, yes, this is the wrong word. And I'm like, thank you. I appreciate you. I don't want to poo-poo.
Or this needs to be plural.
Helpful. Yeah, this should be plural. But it's like, I'm going to, and I'll tell them, I'm going to get an editor. I have an editor that will help me with this, and that's great. But I really want to know, was there a point where a chapter where you were just falling asleep? Is there something you said, wait, what? This doesn't make any sense. That's what I need to know more than you're missing a period here.
Yeah, there's a difference between readers and editors, and I don't think a lot of people grasp that. Like, I honestly think that's one of the best parts about having as writers, I think it's good to have like reader groups that are other writers, because we're the book geeks like us, like
Yeah.
people like us. That's what you've got like Dark Veil Society and Fosha and groups like this on the internet, that we are the book geeks. Like I'm not saying that just people that aren't writers that are readers can't be book geeks, but it's different. I think people like us read each other's books and we pick up on it a lot. And you start to think like, oh, that's really good. I kind of want to steal that almost. Not that you're literally, you know what I mean? Or you read something, sometimes you're like, I would have done it differently, right? Like, I don't know. I think that it's important to try to grasp a group of people that are writers and readers as you can for things like that. Personally, that's what I've had the best experience with. But
I like
No.
the pre-prompted questions. I know for me personally, if you need a beta reader that will find continuity problems, I'm great at that. Like, you left the sword back in chapter 2 and now it just appeared in chapter 7. Like, no, you left it behind. I'll catch that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm good at that too. I pick up on all these little nuances. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm hyper focused on some of that stuff.
Yeah, and something I have noticed from beta readers is you can push too hard and they will feel obligated to give you feedback where you don't need it. And that's also that's a bad thing, because then you start making changes that you don't really want to make because they're good,
Yeah.
like they're good written verses or whatever, and you go back and go, well, maybe that isn't clear, and you question things that are actually not bad. And so
that
you really
that
have to-
happened. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. It happened to me because I actually went back and changed some things in book 1 of Gwen's Kingdom now that I kind of regret. Like, there was just too many descriptive things, like in a couple scenes. In fact, Russell actually, when he read my book, he said, there's nothing happening in these characters, and they're right there. And I was like, yeah, I know, I took that out. So like that was one of the beta responses.
It's funny. I
now
had
I
a
kinda
similar conversation with Russell about stuff in the Arsonist, where it's like
Okay.
he gave me some feedback, and I was like, "Yeah, I cut that out."
Yeah.
So there were like 2 things in my sequel in the Confluence that I had a couple beta readers tell me I should suggest cutting out, and this time I've decided to just say, nope, I'm just gonna leave it. If people hate it, then I will claim it. I'd rather be like, oh, I should have listened to the beta readers than, oh, darn it, I listened to the beta readers.
It's an art. It really is an art. And I think you learn more as you go, like what your audience is and what they really want and they need out of the book, like what kind of detail, like what level of detail they were looking for, and what they kind of expect out of you as a writer. And as much as I hate to say it, there is like that skill meets art kind of craft to it, where eventually you just kind of like, what your beta readers are thinking, and it is good to have them. But sometimes you do learn like not to listen to them. So not always, but there's times where you kind of learn to get that spidey sense where you're like, I think they're just saying something to say something. And you don't want to just tweak it just because they felt obligated to give you some kind of feedback or nitpick it or something. So
You have to know a
it's
little
tricky.
bit your beta readers too. Like, I'm the only one here with the gray hair. All 3 of you have dark hair. So, and I know I've spoken to all of you at different points about your book. And one thing that I try to communicate to all of you, and I try to say this, is that especially for Brian and his book, which is YA, I am not the target demographic for Brian's book. Not to say I can't enjoy it, not to say that adults can't enjoy YA, for example. But the feedback I may give him, I don't necessarily think he should take all of my feedback, because I'm reading it from a 55-year-old's perspective with a whole lot different experience than a 15-year-old is going to read his book. So I hope I can give him some things, for example, that he may use, but you shouldn't listen to everything that I would say, for example.
Yeah. Well, and on the other end of that, I think it's good to get feedback, but there's a side of it where it messes with your brain if you get too much to a point where you start questioning what's good. Like you just said, like I had my nieces and nephews, and some people read different versions of different things and get feedback, and they were like, "Oh, I love it! I love everything about this and this and this." And then I had a couple people in, I had a lot of arcs in betas for the Carrie's Last Stand. And what's funny is they're literally like one arc would say, I love this part, do not change anything about it. And another one would give me the exact opposite feedback. I hated this. It was too fast. I didn't like this part here. And it was like, holy crap. You know, you really do have to know like who your target reader is and what they really, really are wanting, and just kind of try and aim towards them. There's a trick there. There's a lot of a trick there.
Yeah, to me, when I see that opposite like polarity, my instinct is to go with what I like. Like at the end of the day, it's like, all right, you got the polarity, but I like it, so I'm just gonna go with that. So I'm interested, if I bring us back kind of to the art of the sequel, right? So one of the things that is on my mind is that you have your first book, especially if you're doing like let's say a trilogy or more than 2 books, making that middle one not terrible. Like, does anybody have like that idea or that fear of like, this is going to be like, it's the bridge book, it's the like it's there's no epic finale, there's no like, it's not like the introduction, it's kind of like the bridge in the middle.
I have the perfect example, and I know Russell's going to appreciate this. When you're writing a sequel, you have the ability for the middle book, like especially in a trilogy. I'll use a trilogy for example because I don't see myself writing like a super long series anytime soon. But the trilogy, that middle book is going to I feel like it makes or breaks your whole large story arc, because it's either going to be The Empire Strikes Back or it's going to be The Last Jedi. And if Star Wars fans know what I'm talking about, like it's either going to be the book where everyone's like, I can't believe this is so peak and I can't wait to see how it ends with the final book, or it's going to be the one where they're like, this is terrible, I don't even care how this ends now, because it's just so that's what I have to say about that.
It's a good point.
Yeah, it is a good point. That's very true. I know I felt an extreme, I don't know how about the 3 of you felt, but I felt an extreme amount of pressure going into the second book, way more than I had with the first book. First book is like, hey, whatever, I don't even know what I'm doing exactly, but it looks cool, I think I like it. Get to the second book, and it's like, oh, okay, some people have read my first book, they seem to like it. Oh, I don't want to mess the bed here with the second book. Like you said, I don't want to be the Last Jedi. And for me, I really struggled, though, where to end this second book. Because for me, as you all know, I'm more of a plotter. So I had book 2 and 3 plotted out. So it was just a matter of where do I cut here, to end the book. And something I read online that I'm curious to get all your feedback on, too, is someone said, and I don't remember who, but like, well, all of your books should have, a self-contained story. They should have a solid ending. And I'm like, but really, does a middle book really have to have, or a middle movie, does that have to really have a solid ending? And, you mentioned Empire Strikes Back, one of the greatest sequels of all time, does not have any kind of a concrete ending. And so I struggled with that. Curious what you all think of that. But then, I ended up cutting my book at a certain point that I think Jessica's the only one of you 3 who's read it, and she can attest. I mean, some people will love it, some people will hate it, because it definitely does not have a concrete ending. It has much more of an Empire Strikes Back type of cliffhanger.
I'm jumping into it next month, Russell. I just finished Kevin's book, so
awesome.
I'm jumping into it soon.
You already finished Kevin's book?
I've been reading it for a long time. I got a copy. I got an advanced copy. I've been reading it for a while, man. It's great.
It's good though. I like it. I actually really I've loved this book so far.
I haven't read the epilogue yet. I'm like at the last chapter, so I'll finish it this weekend. Anyways,
nice.
You digress.
It's a good book. I'm 60%. Anyway, yeah.
Unless, did you have something you want to say about it, Brian? Because I don't want to like derail or anything. I was gonna just say something about what Russell was saying.
No, go ahead. I do have something to say, but I'll wait for you. Go ahead.
So we talked earlier for quite a bit about beta readers, but one of the things that I felt a lot of pressure about with writing a sequel was you have a separate type of beta readers that are the fans, where they have expectations now. They have characters that they've grown to like now, and you're writing this as it's happening, right? It's not like in a like. So you're definitely like with Russell, I totally understand what you mean by you're like, well, now there's people that actually like this story, because the first one I didn't even know, if more than 9 people were going to read it. Now there's like well over 50, maybe over 100 people that have read it and liked it. They're going to read the next one. Like, how do I make sure I don't scuff this up? But you also want to stay true to your story. If you're a plotter like Russell and I, we're like, well, I understand that you guys really like this thing, but I was planning to shift it over to here in the next book. And so now you're like, kind of as the writer, as you're writing it, like you're like, if I do what I planned, they're going to hate me. But if I change it, then I'm letting the fans write the book. Mm-hmm. And yeah,
that's tricky. I can see how you hit that wall pretty hard, especially where you ended your book. I'm kind of confused about Russell to a point, because I know Russell's first book, I read Relentless Blades last year. I listened to it. Great book. But now that he's telling me like the second one has this other kind of like, I don't know, Empire Strikes Back kind of thing going on, I'm intrigued. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know, but I'm excited. I think it'll be good. But on mine, I actually, I guess I kind of stovepipe myself into the main character's arc anyway. It's really hard for me to break away from Gwen at this point. And so I think I'm kind of going to have this path already laid out. But one thing I will say is her journey in the first book it's very lighthearted. It's easy for like a 12-year-old to read. It's very YA in a lot of ways. It's almost mid-grade at some sections. And then this next book that I'm coming out with, it'll have to step up probably to PG-13 at this point, just so I can make it a little darker, give her a little bit more of a grit in her story, and then kind of give the story just that kind of maturing feel to it. I don't want to compare necessarily to Harry Potter, but I constantly try to like look at other story arcs that would be kind of similar to what I'm doing. And I think that would be the closest, just off the top of my head, that kind of follows that pathway where you see the character coming of age story kind of develop and get a little bit, they grow with the audience, I guess. And so because I already kind of know that, and I already kind of know my story mostly, although I will say it's changed. I've had to change it. It's definitely way more challenging now to try to meet the balance I need to meet, because I don't want it to go too dark. It's super easy to go too dark. I don't want it to go too gritty. I don't want it to go too far in the wrong direction. I still want it to feel like Gwen's Kingdom, because people who read Gwen's Kingdom, they like it, they love it, they fall in love with it. They want more of that to a point, but they do want a different story. They don't, they obviously want to see it grow and advance. And so I would say you guys both hit it right on the head. It's super, super challenging to meet that balance you want to meet, not disappoint your fans. I'm not necessarily letting my fans write the book or anything when I listen to their feedback, but I do feel like I have to meet some expectations with this next book, and it's stressful. It brought a whole new level of stress I did not expect with writing a sequel to this one. And so even my beta readers, I've been, just panicking, like, what are they going to say? It's different, it's not the first book, so yeah, it's definitely got a different feel to it. I would say way more than I expected or anticipated as far as writing a sequel. So
yeah.
What about you, Jessica?
Yeah, so I have, as most people know, I already have a full series that's out, and I struggle with this a lot with my second book in that first series, simply because it's probably what I would consider it's the shortest, but it's also, I didn't do a traditional like story arc linear thing. For the second book of that series, I actually tell the same timeline, different character. And this has been an interesting thing for me because it does offer me 2 entry points into the story. So I can look at a person coming to talk to me, let's say at a farmer's market or whatever, and I can see, like, are they more interested in like the woman's story or the man's story? And I can pitch it either way, depending on who I'm staring at. But the problem with this is that if you do read it linearly, they're not, the the gem is the third book, but I got to get you there. And that's why I actually I released a combined version of books 1 and 2, which actually interlaces the stories together. And I push that hard. Like in a live event, I push that one hard because it's like, it's a big fat book and it's maybe a little intimidating. But at the same time, I know that gives you that full cohesive first book experience with both of those. And then the second book becomes what would be the third, which is I know that one's a good book, but I'm always worried that if you start with the first book, I'm going to lose somebody. They're going to drop off at the second because they're going to be like, well, it's kind of, there's no dragons in that one. It's a little more like a road trip kind of thing. It's not as exciting because it's telling the woman's story and she's not a fighter or anything like that. So I want to get them to the third, but it's like I'm worried about losing or having more drop off because of that. So that was a creative choice that I made that maybe I wish I would have done them together.
Really? Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. With YA, I'm scared to write a huge chunky book, but
exactly.
Pretty thick for
I don't even want to write big chunky books, and I'm not writing YA. I think adults, at least, I'll give Gen X more credit, Russell. Their attention spans were not rotted by the internet as much as like millennials and Zoomers. But yeah, there's a reason why novellas do so well.
Yeah.
No, I feel all of you. We're talking about the next book, so I think we're all writing our next books as well. So like I'm writing the third book and I'm stressing every day because I'm seeing it growing longer than the first 2 books, which both of mine are over 450 pages, which already seems chunky for a lot of people. And so I'm over here stressing like, this book's getting longer. I don't want it to get longer, but I have to tell the story. And I'm like over here, like, I really don't want a 500-page book, but it's probably going to be that. But
it's the ending though, right? Isn't it? Yeah. It's the ending of a trilogy though. I think I feel like if you're writing a trilogy and it's the last book, it's book number 3, I think it's okay if it's longer than the other 2. But that's just me. I know that some people are weird on their bookshelves. They want a whole trilogy to be the same length. I get it, but the third book, I feel like it has to be. There's a lot, like it's okay. It shouldn't have to be, but like it's okay if it's longer than the others.
That's a good point.
That's just me though. Because there's a lot of it. There's a payoff. There's usually an epilogue. There's a lot of arcs. Maybe they're gonna live happily ever after. You have to conclude so many things. It's kind of like my favorite movie trilogy. Lord of the Rings. The Return of the King movie is like 4 hours long. The other 2 are only 3. Only 3. But Return of the King's 4 hours long. It's an extra hour of movie because there's so many things you have to wrap up in terms of arcs. We gotta. So yeah,
my last book is also the longest. Most of my books have 3 parts. It has 4 parts. There was no way I had to make it longer, so it's a good like 30 or 40,000 words longer than the others.
It's easy to overwrite or under anticipate. So I'm gonna put Gwen's Kingdom book 2 out in 2 volumes, which is very unique. In the first volume, I aimed for 15 chapters right down the middle. That's what I was hoping for. I went to at least 17, probably 18 at this point. So it went from like 50-ish thousand words to 64, and I hope it doesn't grow after editing, but I know it will. So I'm already kind of scared. If I go over like 130,000 words, that's a chunky book for a YA.
Don't be. I don't think you should be scared to. I don't know. This is. I've seen that this is a little bit of an unpopular opinion on X, but I think personally that it's better for the reader to want more than to want less when they've finished reading your book. I'd rather get like a 3 or 4 star review on Goodreads and they're like, I was really, I feel like there should have been more here. I really wish that there was more of this, than a 3 or 4 star review on Goodreads. It's like, yeah, there were a couple chapters that just went on, and then like this chapter was really short and this one was super long, and there were certain things that could have just been, way less descriptive, etc. Like that's me. Like I would rather people say that they wanted more than they wanted less. I guess.
Yeah. And that's one reason I'm breaking my book up into volumes as well. I think it kind of helps with certain perspective digestion for the common, like you said, Gen X, Z, millennials. I'm sorry, not Gen X, millennials and Z. X is rocking it with books. Keep going, X. But Z, I mean, they're on TikTok, Instagram, they're scrolling. They don't have the attention span to sit through 130,000 words a lot of times. And I hear it from parents. They say, I bought my kid 3, The Lord of the Rings, Akatar, all these books. And there's huge books, and it's like they don't read it. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to split this full 100,000+ word book up into volumes. And then maybe just perception wise, it's easier to digest that mentally when you're reading it. It's still, a full book when it's done, but you break it up like that a little bit for those people who do see those thick books, and it's intimidating. And hopefully that pays off. But I will say it's been trickier to try to figure out how to write like that because I just want to flesh it out more. So it's kind of on the back end. It's kind of tricky too. And I may end up just swiping the volumes when I release the full book. When I put book 2 out, I'll release a full book. So
it might not even be bad to just try and just. Another thing I've told some people too in the past is just write the story the way you want to write it, and if the audience connects with it, they don't. That's another kind of like Hail Mary strategy you could do. Just be like, well, I don't care if they wanted more or less. This is the story I wanted to tell. I mean, that's one of the parts that's cool about being an indie author, right? Is that creative freedom. You don't have a publisher saying, hey, you got to make this book shorter, or you need to make this book longer. Because we're writing to market, like we're going to push this in Barnes and Nobles, and we want this to be in the YA section, and all the other books there are less than 100,000 words. So you got to like really cut this thing. Like you don't have somebody doing that to you, right?
No,
so
that's true. That's a good point. And I will say, honestly, the people who do really get through my book and like it, they love it. And so there's another part about having a thick book. A lot of times, if someone doesn't like it, they'll DNF it instead of pushing through. So you end up with like a lot of people won't even finish a big thick book. They just, so you don't ever hear it. A lot of them won't review either because they didn't finish it. So there may be a hidden gem there with writing thicker books. I don't know.
I liked what you said about the Harry Potter comparison for Gwen's Kingdom of like having it grow with you. I think that's important for YA, but that all the stories that I grew up when I was reading YA, that's how they worked.
Yeah.
So.
That's cool. Yeah, and I get compared to Harry Potter, which is funny because when I wrote the book, I wasn't reading Harry Potter. I'd never read it until after I was editing it. That's when I read Harry Potter. I was kind of going back through it, which is funny because there's some crossover like concepts, but I was actually thinking more of like Avatar: The Last Airbender and stuff like that. Inuyasha. I had a completely different influence. Yeah, man. So I always find that funny. But, I get it. It feels like, Lost Family. You got a wizard school. It's similar in some ways. So I get it.
Now, I'm curious if we can bring it kind of change topics or pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
How do you approach? So we're working on our sequels. How much to recap for your readers when you're working on these sequels, these from other books? Like how much do you try and recap, or do you want to, so that maybe it could be read alone, or maybe like a release period and there's been a long time between books? Like how do any of you handle that line?
That's a good question.
That is a good
question.
That's
a great question.
For me, it ended up early on, I decided I didn't want to do a couple page, just here's the recap. I know some people say you could do that or get away with just literally a recap, and I didn't want to do that. So for me, though, I found it was fairly easy in the sense that Relentless Blades has a pretty clean ending, kind of like Star Wars. Not everything is resolved, but the main plot points are hit. But then you kind of have a point where the characters disperse, but some are together, some are different, but they go back to their homelands, for lack of a better term. So that enabled me in this next book, Ashbound Oaths, I hope, and only readers can tell me if I did a good job at this or not, is to have the recap as part of the first 3 chapters, because I'm shifting points of view to the different characters. I've got Vidge and Grimm and Fralic, and they go to Valadon, and you have Everly and Alindra, and they go back to their homelands. Then you have Rorgast, my villain, my Darth Vader, who goes back to his homeland. So each of them then encounters people who don't know what had happened to them. Oh, you've been gone for so long. What happened? So through the course of those first 3 chapters, I'm able to have these characters relay certain plot points. And I hope I don't regurgitate too many between the 3 chapters, but I have them each from their points of view as well, because not everybody has the same point of view of how things happen. But generally, I'm able to, I hope, recap the story for readers so that they can have them explain what had happened to them. And this is why I've been gone for the last couple months. This happened and this happened. And so then I'm hoping that refreshes it for old readers. And if someone does happen to pick up Ash Baunos first, then I hope that at least launches them into the world so they kind of get a feeling of what these characters have been up to before the book starts. So that was my approach.
You want me to go next? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So for me, this is going to be, I guess, a little bit of a spoiler, but I don't really care that much. My sequel takes place very soon, like after the ending of the first book. It's how it begins. Cover kind of already gives a hint of that. Some of the characters at the end of the first book, they escape on a hot air balloon. Sorry, spoilers. It's been out for 3 years now, so cover has a hot air balloon. That's kind of my cover kind of sets the scene going into the book. I know a lot of people, Russell, you've been a really good advocate for this in your videos of like when I pick up a book, like the cover should communicate what I'm getting myself into kind of thing, almost like a movie poster. And I kind of try to do that, but I try to have it kind of more of like set the tone for how the book starts. I don't know if it's going to really deliver on how the book lands. Yeah, just trying to think about that is a good question, Jess. Because I did wrestle with that, and what I ended up coming to terms with was a very like old school fantasy novel concept of like, if you're writing a trilogy and you've already described something, you don't really need to describe it again, I guess, a whole lot in the second book. I tried to approach that with events though, like I'll reference things in like a world building sense, but I'm not going to have like I had a hard time basically having the characters be like, oh, what happened? And it's like, well, why would they ask that? Because time wise, this book ended and then this book starts like a day later. So it's like, they're not going to really recap like what happened yesterday, right? That would just kind of break immersion for the reader. Like, weren't they just there 12 hours ago? So it's definitely kind of like been tricky. It was definitely tricky approaching the sequel of like, how do I, remind people? But I don't know about you guys, but like, I remember reading book trilogies, a series where you didn't need a recap. I'm like Russell, I opted out of putting the recap pages before my book. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. It's just I stylistically didn't, because those aren't the books I grew up reading didn't have that. Like when I was, you start reading like the Two Towers doesn't recap what just happened in Fellowship of the Ring. The Two Towers book starts off with Boromir dying, right? Yeah. So it's like, there's no recap of like, hey, do you know why Boromir just died? Like they don't have that conversation.
That'd be weird.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's definitely something that has to be handled carefully. But I also think that this is my last thought. Is I think that the recap is a stylistic choice. I don't think it's a rule. And I think it really depends on your genre. And I would even argue at this point in this day and age, probably your audience, like Brian he's writing young adult. Like he doesn't have to do it, but like it probably wouldn't hurt because you're dealing with kids that have like TikTok brain, right? Not all of them. Not all kids have TikTok brain. I'm generalizing, but yeah.
No, that's fair. That's actually really fair. This is a question that I've been asking my betas a lot, and I asked a few other people, and Russell and some other people have thrown some ideas out there, and just in general, I want to kind of clarify some things that are easy to overread because I had a problem that I did with book one, and that was pulling redundancies out where I made notification, and I'm gonna probably spoil some things here as well. Gwen's kingdom is set in the future about 1,000 years. And so no electricity exists anymore. This giant moon hits the earth. It destroys everything. Magnesium doesn't work the same. There are laws that are just no longer the same in physics. And so what there is there's a new power called the G that powers things. And so the G is kind of the replacement of electricity, but it's still very early on. And so you can't fire guns. You can't do some things that you'd normally be able to do because there just isn't that material left in the world that ignites the same, right? And so you still have some technologies like ice cream or things like that where you'll see those trickle in. But I didn't put those redundancies in there. I took them out of the first book. And so it's easy to overread them or just not pick up on that. And so what I'm doing in the second book is I'm trying to kind of sprinkle some of that back in there so people don't feel so disconnected to the plot of the story of book one. But as far as the actual recap, I'm I've debated on this so many times. I even wrote a prologue where I went over it, and instead of actually recapping, what I think I'm going to do, because I left on a huge cliffhanger in this book, is I think I'm going to take about 3 or 4 paragraphs from the last chapter right at the very end and just put it as the blurb on the back. I think that's probably, for me, better than going through and doing a whole recap because people already they already wanted that next, what happens kind of thing. And I don't know, maybe I'm underthinking it in that regard, but from what I've heard back from other readers that are young and read it and liked it, they kind of told me they didn't want the recap. They said, no, that's a waste of time, a waste of I just don't want it. And so the people who do make it through book one probably are, because it's chunky, they're probably already going to be invested enough to just go back and start reading it from what I'm seeing, or just read the last chapter maybe, and then everything kind of like clicks back and, oh yeah, this is it. So I'm not necessarily thinking I will fully recap. I'll just trickle in a little bit more of the world building nuances that I think are easy to overmiss because I took too many redundancies out of my first book, and that was a beta reader thing. So some people are like, you already said this, and then I was like, okay, I'll pull it out. And so I was like, okay, now I'm getting some feedback from some people here and there where it's like, what is this? It's 1,000 years in the future? And it's like, yeah. And so I see and hear some little things like that sometimes where I'm like, well, it's in there once. It's a big reveal, but I probably should trickle it back in there again. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And sorry for the spoilers. I don't want to spoil too much, but
I think we're safe to do a couple spoilers here.
I hope so.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Do you guys want to do a cover reveal here in a minute?
I was gonna say, speaking of blurbs and stuff, don't you have a cover you're gonna share with us?
Yeah.
I think everyone here's seen it in this chat. So, Jessica, go ahead if you want.
All right, are we gonna do? We need to do a drum roll because I don't have like a fancy screen. All right, guys, you ready? We're gonna reveal Ryan's cover in 3, 2, 1. There it is.
Oh, there she is.
It's beautiful.
Look at that beauty.
Like it's very beautiful. Like that is, I love it.
I love the little creepy ethereal guy with the trees and the mountains. It's just like delightfully spooky.
Oh, thank you.
It's like reminds me of like Russell appreciated. It kind of reminds me of like the Warcraft, like Emerald Dream kind of stuff going on. It's cool.
No, it's a beauty.
Full wrap cover. So we have the cover, and then the interior flap.
I like this type of. I wouldn't call it anime, but the kind of like westernized anime, kind of you kind of revealed it a little bit, like your influence from like the Avatar cartoon.
Yeah, definitely.
Where it's like it's not, where it's definitely like that kind of Eastern style cartoon, but it's more Americanized, I guess. I don't know how to really phrase this. You understand what I'm saying, right?
I like the
I
question.
do,
in
yeah.
the chat.
Same artist
Is it the same
from book
artist,
one?
Brian?
Yes, this one's the same artist. I just honestly what I wanted to do, because I love my not my very first cover, but my remake of the cover with the moon. I love that one so much. I wanted to do justice. I've been working on this. Gosh dang it! I think since July of last year. Like it's been a long time. I've been working on
I've seen your work in progress since fall last year, and it came out great, man. I love
Thanks,
it.
man.
I think I love your style is all I was trying to articulate in a really bad way earlier. Is I like I like the art direction. Like this, it's very like that's the kind of style that I'm really drawn to as well. Like if I was to depict characters from my books into a cover or like a poster or something, like I would definitely go like this direction as well.
I appreciate that. I wish I was faster. I'm just not a very fast artist. Like I'm too much of a perfectionist. Like I'll sit there and I'll draw one line for literally like 3 or 4 minutes, and I'll just hit note back, note back, note back until I like the way it looks, which is stupid. Like that's not that's not a good way to do art. But I think in the end it looks good, but it just takes me way more time than it should. So
I think it's cool. Thanks for sharing it with us.
oh,
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah.
bet.
You've seen it here first, folks. So
No, and I was just
Russell, what do you
saying, Jessica needs to show her book off. Since it just came out,
She
and
should.
she's got a great
Yeah.
cover as
She
well.
should.
yeah, I can do that.
Great idea, Russell.
I mean, it's only fair. It is her channel. She is
Yeah.
hosting all
No,
of
I
us.
agree.
Her book just came out,
I
and
agree.
it's badass too.
I gotta find it. You put me on the spot here, and I'm like, where the heck is the stupid whole cover?
That's the first time I've shown anyone the title too. I just thought of the title last night. I was like, this is it. I like this title.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, like we've talked. I mean, you spend several $100s or spend a lot of your time. If I had your talent, I would do my own cover.
I was gonna say if I had the ability, man.
Yeah,
I tried. I really tried. I tried to do like a simple drawing for the Vitamin Kid, and I couldn't do it.
My wife got me this in 2013. I sucked at art before then, and I just sit there and slam my face into it like I do everything until it goes my way. So like that's literally my
You
talent.
gotta do something.
I think it's cool, man. I like it. I really like your cover too, though, Russell. It's very like not vintage because it's new. Where like it pops like in a newer way. Yeah, but it's more of like it's very retro.
Talking about
That's
the
what
license plate or the new
that's
one?
They're both good, but I thought Ash Brown was really cool. It looked like when I first saw it pop up in my feed, I had to do a double take. I thought Russell was reposting something from like Magic the Gathering or something. Like it looked like a promotional poster for like a new card set, Magic. Like it's cool.
Yeah, that's the style I
There you
grew up with. Oh, there we go.
Hell
That's a nice
yeah.
cover.
Look at that beauty too.
That is a good cover.
The dragon gives me eldest vibes. I like it.
Yeah,
Totally gives me eldest vibes. Dude, I had that book on my shelf my whole childhood, the big old red dragon face. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This one, Jessica, right? This is the one that the artist who did Ashbound O's helped you finish this one up, right?
Yes.
I know you had like the outline. You want to talk about how because I know you gave a much more detailed like description than I did. For example, when you did my book,
I did my own like AI mock-up type of thing of how I wanted it. So like what the position of the character is. It's a scene that it is from the book. So he's at one point he's working at manifesting light in his hands, and it's like a big breakthrough that he's able to get the light manifested through his hands. So, I wanted that like in the steppe kind of environment. The prince is now kind of like dressed like a pauper.
I'm surprised we didn't have like the did you ever watch the Pee Wee Herman show where she said the word, she said AI.
I know.
I was gonna say I think that's great that you did that. I know so many people that do it and they won't admit it. Like it's a great tool for creating concept. conceptual art pieces, not to like sell. But
Yeah,
generative
it
AI
gave a
is great for concepting.
good idea to like, this is how I want it, and I'm very good at manipulating those images and moving them around and making them
Yeah,
look the way I want
it's
them.
great for that, and that's one of the benefits of it, using it as a tool as a writer. I think is you're able to take someone who can't draw as well as Brian, like me, and you can kind of show your artist, like, this is kind of what I'm going for. And people say, like, yeah, but it's still taking ideas from other people. Well, so am I if I have to go on Pinterest or DeviantArt for 3 hours.
Now I'll show you. Like,
I'm just going to send them something that someone else drew. Like, you know what I mean?
Like, I use tons of references.
Yeah.
Tons of references. I don't care.
We should have a whole nother conversation on the whole AI. We all know Tim Robert. He's very much anti-AI. He and I were just chatting about art and AI and how difficult it is now to get. I mean, it's virtually impossible to get away from having artists who don't use at least some form of AI. And there's AI that creates it. And then but just AI itself is embedded in so much of the software now.
That's what I've tried to say,
So
to say, oh no. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
The software I use has what's called a pixelation correction software. It's automatic, and you can turn it off if you really want to suck. But it actually literally has AI built in the pixel correction. So if you draw a line that's like a pinch not straight, it will try to go, okay, we want these pixels in here a little straighter. And so if you really want to split hairs, you almost, like, any digital artist is going to have some little tiny form of AI in there. It's impossible to get away from it. And that's not even touching like stamp brushes. I use stamp brushes on textures. I don't care where my textures came from. If I want a shoelace to look like it was gritty, it can come from AI. I don't care, like, it's still my drawing. I'm gonna just texture it in. So yeah, Russell hit the nail on the head. You can't get away from it. Not today.
There's a difference. There's a difference between using AI, like what you're talking about, for correcting, like for like Jessica using concept art, like positioning and conceptual, and then you using it for like correction of something you're spending time creating originally. Then me going into ChatGPT and going, give me an eerie hot air balloon image, and then it generates one, and then I copy paste that. That's different. There's a total different, but people can't make that distinction of like, no, they're the same. Like, no, they're not. Trust me. No. Like, you know why it's different is because if Brian never shared that, if Jessica never shared that, you would never know.
Yeah. No, that's true.
If I went to ChatGPT or Gemini and asked it to give me an eerie hot air balloon cover, you would know. You'd be like, why does hot air balloon have 6 fingers?
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not completely untalented, so like I gave a concept picture to another artist.
Better than I can do. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not the worst artist on God's green earth.
I like the cloak. You should have kept the cloak on the dragon.
On the dragon.
But, yeah, like I've had fun with stuff like that. Like, he took it and did something else, but it's fun anyways.
But you hit the nail on the head, Tyler. It's just that right now there are some people who are just in that full mindset that if it has AI, even a little bit, it's out. Throw the baby out with the bathwater or whatever. And it's so much more nuanced than that nowadays.
It's incredibly nuanced. I mean, I can't speak for where you guys live. Where I live, though, the kids, they don't just use calculators in math class anymore in high schools. They use AI. The AI doesn't give them the answers, but it's a Socratic type of AI tutoring thing.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Over here in Washington, that's very common. And so it's like, I don't think I understand why people want to like die on this hill against it. I understand it. And for a lot of certain things about it, I respect. I don't think Coca-Cola should be using AI to generate commercials. They have the money to pay animators. They were animating polar bears drinking Coke for decades. They're a massive company, okay? But there are some people in the indie space that are using it as a tool to help leverage it because they don't have a studio, you know, they don't have people at their disposal, and like artists obviously work together, you know, hey, you're really good at drawing, I'm good at writing, let's work together, I'll pay you, and or whatever, you work out a deal. That's a thing. But using the artist using AI though in his work or her work, it's like Russell said, it's so, yeah, we could go on for a long time about this, but yeah, nuance.
That's right. Could have a whole nother conversation. As far as our sequels, I have one more kind of question or thing that I wanted to throw out to the group as far as like the difference. So I guess I'm going to frame it this way. Like when I released my book, I released it to crickets, my first one. So like I didn't have an audience, like I didn't have that. But I did somehow feel like, you know, the difference there, the hype or whatever, the accomplishment of the second book felt less exciting to me than the first book. Like even within my family, like the idea like, oh, you wrote a book within the concept of my family was like, cool, like that's exciting. Like, wow, you wrote a book. And then the second book comes out and they're like, oh, another one?
Yes.
It felt lesser.
Yeah.
I experienced that with the Vitamin Kid, mainly because it was a different book than The Arsonist, but also just because it was like, yeah, like you're saying, like friends and family are like, oh, you're like going to continue to do this.
It's like,
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's kind
this
of
wasn't just once.
wasn't a one and done thing.
So funny.
I think that's pretty common though. I think that if you were doing this for a living, I think a lot of people think like, man, I wish I could do this for a living. But I think if you were doing it for a living, that you would feel that like 100 times more magnified. Like, okay, book's done for 2026. Time to start drafting the new concept for 2027 for my publisher. You know, like,
Yeah.
Like, I hate to use him as an example because he's very polarized, but like Stephen King, I mean, at this point, he's just putting them out. That it's just kind of like, does he really get excited when the next book comes out and it does well or bad? I don't think he cares. He's cashing the check either way, right? I know what you're saying though. I can relate to what you're saying, and I wish I had some kind of words of like I could console you and be like, oh, this is what I did to feel. I think you just kind of keep writing.
Deal with it. It's just a reality.
I think when you find your actual readers who are excited and want the sequel, like they are, super hyped. I don't really think it's much about like you move past that stage in your family to a point, like I have family members who literally read my book and never reviewed it, but they'll tell me to my face it was amazing. It was a great story. Thank you. I was like, okay, but they won't even go out and review it. So, maybe they're not really that into it. They're not my hardcore readers. They read it. They liked it. They would probably read another book if I wrote it and handed it to them, but they're not the ones who are like signed up on Amazon on my author page waiting for the next book to hit because they're like, I want more from that guy. And so, yeah, there is this dynamic in the family where it's really cool that they'll support you, or at least me. That's how I feel. But at the same time, I kind of have to like really put that into reality. Like they're not my hardcore readers who are going to buy every book like Stephen King's fan base, will. And I think a lot of being an author, especially writing sequels, is finding that repeat audience who just wants to keep coming back to your work. And that's a huge battle about anyone in an author's shoes, trying to make sure you're reaching out and pulling those people in and keeping them, on your side through the long haul. But definitely an interesting experience either way. I'll say that.
And it's so challenging, right? Because you've got to catch those readers, and then there's so many other options out there that you're hoping that you get the right people who your book really connects with, who are going to come back. I mean, I'm fortunate that I do have friends and family who are supportive. I know some people don't, and I feel bad for them because I have my wife, my sister, friends, they'll read my book, and and I force them to leave reviews. So when you guys see that I have extra reviews, that's because I'm a taskmaster on some of them. Like, hey, you said you liked the book. I haven't seen the review. Yeah, I'm a little more blunt, and it hasn't worked on everybody. There are still a few who have not, but it's not for lack of trying on my part to get them to leave their views. But I do have one quick question. I know I had shared with you, Tyler, earlier, and all three of you have this that I don't have. I've only written the second book, which is a direct sequel, and I'm working on the third book, which is a direct sequel. But the three of you, particularly you, Tyler, have had the experience of writing now a direct sequel, but also a second book in the Vitamin Kid that was completely, like you mentioned, different genres. So what is your feeling, the three of you, the pressures, the experiences, whatever, between writing a second book that has nothing to do with the first one versus writing the actual sequel?
It's a good question. In my case, like I said, there's a little bit of a backstory, a little bit of Tyler lore, and why I put Children of Strife, my little fiction book series, on hold to do the Vitamin Kid. It's kind of like a pact. Wanted to finish my great grandfather's work if I ever published my own book. I was like, if I can publish my own book, I'll go do that. And like, so that was how that came about. I will say, the Vitamin Kid was not as popular in terms of like reception. I'm not saying that it wasn't popular, people didn't like it or it wasn't good. It wasn't like that. It was just, it wasn't as received as well as The Arsonist was, because, but there's a reason to that though. I don't think it's just because I deviated from a different genre and like all my readers were expecting this, because I have people that have literally DM'd me on social media. They love the Vitamin Kid. They've never read The Arsonist and they don't plan to, because they don't read like
fantasy type.
Yeah, they don't read fantasy. They don't read spooky books or whatever. So they like the Vitamin Kid because it's more like grounded in like, it's like gritty realism. It's like it's like almost nonfiction because it's like sports fiction. It's like it's that people drive cars and go to work kind of thing. So I have people that have read The Arsonist and they're like, that's cool you did the Vitamin Kid. That's not really my genre. I don't really like boxing, so I'm not going to really read that. No offense. So you have two different audiences, but it's not like you're splitting them, like, oh, now they're not reading this because they're over here reading this. It's just completely tailored differently. And another reason why I think it didn't get as much critical reception is it's not just a niche genre, which is sports fiction. It's very niche. Barnes and Nobles, next time you're there, go and look at sports fiction. It's like one shelf.
Yeah.
It's also from like the 1930s. It's like almost 100 years old, right? So a lot of people can't really relate to that anymore. And there's a lot of language because it was, my great grandfather's when it started. So a lot of the dialogue is he's writing, and it's like people don't talk like that anymore, for better or worse. So my experience, I would say that I don't think it's wrong. I've had a few people reach out to me and ask me this before, and I don't think it's wrong to do it. I think that I wouldn't encourage someone or suggest it if you're in the middle of like a series or trilogy, but I think that like if you put out a zombie book and then you're like, you know what, I kind of want to do I kind of want to do like maybe a romance book or a science fiction odyssey type of like aliens book. I don't think that there's anything wrong with doing that, but be prepared that you're not going to have this, like, your audience doesn't transplant. It doesn't follow you. You still, some people will. They'll be like, oh, dude, I love everything that Brian or Russell writes or Jessica writes. Like, I'm going to just pick it up and read. But like, I have found with my experience, completely different audiences of people, and the stats that we have as authors from Amazon, like our stats show us that, right? You have data that'll show you like you have a lot of this type of demographic that picked up The Arsonist and a lot of, and I can tell you, full transparency to everyone listening, most of the people that have read The Vitamin Kid are older than me. Most of the people that have read The Arsonist are around my age or younger. So, yeah,
that's interesting.
That's what I had to say about that. I don't want to like take up too much. I know you guys all have experience too. So, but that's my take.
Yeah. So the thing I ended up releasing, so I released Dragon Riders of Old in between books 1 and 2 of a series. And the interesting thing about that one is, you hear so often like the idea of like have that standalone book that will help people. Like, you don't have to commit to a series. It's a standalone book, and it'll be a great bring people in thing. I have not found that to be the truth. Like, I have actually found that it is easier to sell the series than the standalone book.
Yes.
People are not so much interested in that standalone book, and I don't know why.
No.
Like, if it seems like if they really want to get it, like at least in the fantasy genre, if they really want to get into something, it seems like they are willing to take a chance on your first book, and with the idea that they might really love those characters, and then they want to stick with them. Because I've even had people note in reviews that they hope that I will keep going with these characters into more of a series, which was never the intention. Like, it was, but they're like, well, I don't want more. I want to spend more time with you. So that was really interesting to me, because it was always like, write the standalone book, don't write the series. Maybe you can write the standalone that can become the series, but you'll get more readers that way, and that's not been my experience at all.
I have so much I want to say about this.
That's so interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
It makes sense though, because it's fantasy. Like, fantasy enjoyers, fantasy readers, they're harkening back to like Chronicles of Narnia, Dragonlance, Lord of the Rings again. Like, they want to like be invested not in just the characters but the world that you're building, because there's a lot of world building in fantasy, even if you're not a big world builder. And like, every person I know that likes fantasy books pretty much enjoys fantasy games too. And when you play fantasy games, and you play Skyrim, and you play The Witcher, play Warcraft, like you get immersed. You want to like live in these worlds, right?
Immersion, yeah.
Whereas from what I've seen, and I wish we had a Darkvale person on here to talk about this, but like, standalone books do really well in like the horror genre, because you're like, get me the hell out of this place. Like, I don't want to come back. I don't want to revisit this. This place sucks. It's scary. Everybody's like, there's like cannibalism, and like, like, I don't want a trilogy of this. I'm good.
That's funny.
So that's what I wanted to say. But
I think that makes a lot of sense though.
I see posts. It's weird. Oh, sorry. I see posts all the time online. Not all the time, but fairly frequently, of people like, oh God, I'd like to read just a standalone book. Everything is a series. So it's interesting to hear that it's not worked out that way for you, Jessica, because I see the posts, but I don't know. Maybe they're just really the minority, and I just happen to see them because it has made me think, oh, maybe, should put out a standalone book. But in fantasy, it makes sense that that's not what people are looking for. Sorry, Brian.
Oh, I was just gonna kind of basically agree with Tyler like that. I think immersion's huge with fantasy readers. Most of them that I read when I go do signings, and I've probably done, 15, 20 signings in 2025. A lot of them come up to me and they literally will ask, like, this is a series, right? And they want to know it's a series. And I actually lose some readers because I'm like, I only have one book out right now. And some of them will go,
that happened to me too.
I don't want to. Yep. I've had that happen so many times. And so now hopefully I know I'm kind of jumping forward to the sequel with the volume 1. Hopefully it kind of just gives that sense out there to my crowd, my audience, my readers. I'm taking this serious. I want to take this series all the way. And I'm actually putting out. Yeah. So I'm hoping, because I see that so often. And like Russell said, I do see people asking sometimes about standalones, but I don't have any experience there. I just have to say, most of my experience in live signings, people ask and they want a series. They want to get immersed. They want to get lost in it. They want to know that you're serious. You're not just going to drop the ball on book 3 or something, or 2 even, and just never finish it. So I kind of see more just from my personal experience. People want this series. They want to get lost, and they want to have fun in your world. But I don't write horror, so I don't I don't know about that side.
I do think the genre probably has a lot to do with it. Like, I would imagine a lot more romance readers probably just you get one book because it's telling the one story, or you get like a horror, to your point. Like, I don't want to spend time there, or like maybe even I imagine there's a lot of genres where it makes more sense, but definitely within fantasy, it seems like people want.
Although it is funny. I mean, I grew up as a horror fan, at least in the movies, right? Horror is probably the biggest genre that has sequels, if you really think about it, which is funny that it's like
For
you
movies,
think a book they want to get out, but when it comes to movies, if a horror movie makes $10 million, you're going to get a sequel. Like it's like every single one.
Yeah, you're right about the movies thing for sure.
That's true.
Plot Armor made a good point though, and that was something I was going to bring, but it slipped my mind was that I think what you're seeing, Russell, has to do with length as well. Like if every book is 450 plus pages, then a 5-book series does sound kind of exhausting or daunting for some people with their attention spans being like maybe they just want a book like that. I feel I bring this up all the time. I really do think book length is like a big thing that a lot of people, for better or worse, have to consider. I mean, I'm not saying that people need to write shorter to because then that's like me encouraging writing to market. I'm just saying that people have to understand that the attention spans of today are not what they were in the 90s. And so people are, I'm an anomaly because I could sit down and read 450 plus page books. I could, I have done that. I have most books that my wife and I own they're thick boys, but
you were giving me credit as being Gen X, but I'll tell you that's why I haven't read Wheel of Time, and I don't ever see myself reading it.
That one I haven't done. I can't do Wheel.
Too big, too many of them. I can't
do Wheel of Time. I don't really like Brandon Sanderson though.
Yeah, my dad. We were talking about this on New Year's or whatever, and my dad's like, "Yeah, I will." He's like a reader, and he will not read Wheel of Time. He's like, it's too much.
It's too much, and it's not. This is going to make a lot of people mad, and it's like, who are you to judge? Kind of position maybe they might have against me, because I'm not saying I'm like better, but as a consumer, not a writer, I don't get the hype. Like I can't get into it. I've tried. I just don't like that style story. I don't know. Can't do it.
I DNF'd it.
Yeah, I could not.
Guys. I DNF'd the Wheel of Time, and I probably will try again one day, but it's so much detail in every book, and it's dry.
It's just too dry, man. It's like
I want to though, eventually, someday, when I'm older, much older.
I think that the one of thing, my last thought that I have on this is just I think that it really does depend on the genre. I think it's hard personally to do like a one-off of like fantasy fiction because you spend as a fantasy writer, you're going to do world building and people are going to get invested and they want more of that. They want that payoff of like, all right, he just spent 2 sentences describing this town or maybe more, or the Tolkien joke, he spent 3 paragraphs describing trees. Like these trees better be important. And then if the book ends and that's the end of the story, it's like, they want to come back to the second book and be like, there's the trees again, or there's the town. We're going back to the town. We're going to see, the butcher again or whatever.
DNF Hallmark. That's funny.
Yeah, I think maybe like the sweet spot is that like the trilogy, right? Like it's not like you're not going into 7, 8 books. It's not like huge, but you get to spend some time.
I don't even mind doing 4, 5, 6, 7 books if it's a good book for me, but I have to be immersed. Yeah. And I think the trick is getting your readers to be immersed. Like when I wrote Gwen's Kingdom, I wasn't even thinking of writing a book. I was thinking of like writing an anime or something. And the more it went into it, the more it was clear it's coming of age, it's going to advance, it's going to have a book feel to it. And it fit that genre so well. I remember at a time thinking, man, this is going to be probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 books. So I mean, I kind of get it, but at the same time, yeah, it's like if I just tried to shove that in one book, it would have been a lot of stuff in one book. And I think it would have been a waste. Like all the world building I did, like you're saying, like one book, I would have felt like, man, I spent way too much time building all this world for one book. So yeah, I agree with that.
I know you guys want to do this again to talk about AI joke, or maybe we were joking or something. You know what we should do, Jess? We should do one on prequels. Because that one's a very hot topic, especially if you want to bring up movies, Russell. We're talking about prequels and stuff. But I just wanted to float that out there because I don't know for get how many more questions you had, Jess, but I wanted to bring that up before I
Spoiler
forgot.
alert, I hate them.
Prequels.
Generally.
I do too.
Depends on the prequel, I think. Like I call my book, I guess, like it's sort of a prequel in the sense it took place in a time period before the events of the main series, but it's not like related to any of the same characters. Like,
If
not like
it's
an origin
that far
story.
removed, it's okay.
That's like
If
more of a
it's
spin-off prequel.
Yeah.
That's different. That's like that's like one of the reasons why people like Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, the Game of Thrones, because it's a complete spin-off prequel. It doesn't affect the main storyline. Yeah. Don't Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, it depends. If it's a forced prequel, it's generally going to have a different feel to it. Just like any author kind of grows with their books a little bit. You know, you change a little bit, like book by book. I think eventually you kind of remove yourself from where you were writing the first book, and so doing like a prequel, like trying to go back and do like the Arsonist in 3 or 4 or 5 books, you're probably gonna like have a different headset. Your writing style is gonna be different. It's not gonna feel the same, and you're gonna have to try and get back into that first book's like mindset. I think it'd be really hard, and I think that's where a lot of prequels, like that are direct prequels, not like Nick Carey's Last Stand's a prequel, sense, but it's nothing like Gwen's Kingdom, so it's not really a prequel in that sense. But like if I went back and said, okay, let's follow Gwen around for her first 4 or 5 years of life in 5 books, it'd be weird, like why? So I don't know. I think I
actually wrote this book, Relentless Blades, with the intent to be Vision Grimm's origin story. Now, yes, I could, like you said, I could go back. I guess technically anything has a prehistory, so I could write about them when they were 8-year-olds or 9-year-olds, but it's like, no, I wrote it intending this is as they first become friends. This is the first meeting. This is everything, so that there isn't the temptation of, oh, I got to explain how did they meet or how. No, forget that. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a point where also it depends on the prequel. Like if you did it really well, it might still be good. But I think a lot of times prequels are like people fishing for extra money. They're like kind of hunting for that extra gold in the nugget. And I think a lot of times they're done cheaply because they're just kind of a money grab. So there's a lot of bad perception, rightfully so, on prequels because of that alone. So I think if you took time and really, really did it well, it'd probably fly. And I think the authors here, being indie, we would probably spend way more time than needed on a prequel to make it good. At least try to. But
all right, guys, I'm gonna wrap us up.
Bring
us all in because I'm having a hard time sitting. I think Russell wants to get going.
It's getting late.
This has been fun.
It's 11 there, isn't it? Yeah.
10:30. Yep. All right. So I will be talking to Tyler in 13 days to go over the Confluence. So we'll be back again. And I'm looking forward to that. We'll, cloak it up, see if I can last longer before I melt.
Gotta crack a window open.
Yeah, I still got the cloak. It's still here, but
anyone in the chat wearing cloaks? Probably not.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys do it. I mean, I'm a California guy. That sweatshirt had to go off. I'm in a t-shirt.
It's because you just said answer. You're in California.
Yeah, you're in California.
Yeah.
I got snow outside.
Dying over here.
You're like more central too, more desert.
Yeah.
San Joaquin.
It's like in the 70s here, so it's really actually pretty muggy right now in this cloak. I'm not gonna lie.
I can imagine. Yeah. No.
Thanks for having us, by the way, Jess. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. And
thank you, Jessica.
How much longer are you going to be around before you're off for a little bit?
That's a good question. I'm counting days at this point. But I am a month. It's supposed to be another 4 weeks.
Another 4 weeks. Well,
4 weeks.
Awesome.
Not far at all.
Nope.
Awesome. You need to do that so you can interview me for book 2. So you got Tyler's
while holding the baby.
Like while holding the baby.
I will fully admit that every single one of my children, you go back to work and I work from home, they were attending meetings that people didn't know about. sleeping on my lap. So
The way it should be. Good job.
Yep. Good job. Thanks,
all right,
guys.
guys. Thank you. I'm
Appreciate
gonna
it.
go ahead
Thanks,
and end this
Jessica.
stream.